of Arizona for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you guys for coming today. I appreciate you guys being here on Police Week. Mr. Erickson, the lady sitting to your left, Miss Spitalnik, stated on Twitter that white supremacism is the most dangerous terror threat. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I think, again, it depends on what context you're looking at. Globally, I would probably disagree with that.
Well, just look at what she tweeted. Is the most dangerous terrorist threat. What do you think about that?
I would probably disagree with that.
Why is that, Mr. Erickson?
Because the global view of threats that we face in this country is much larger than the domestic extremism that we're talking about today. And I think that's a completely different hearing, a completely different topic to have. But I think we tend to get myopia when we start talking about specific things and we start talking in hyperbole. That's what I would describe.
Yeah, you're right. We do that a lot around here. That seems like that's one of the predominant themes in this chamber, which is ironic for some of us that have actually been around the world chasing down real terrorists. Mr. Rojas, what do you think about that? What do you think about that tweet from Ms. Spitalnik? White supremacism is the most dangerous terror threat. What do you think about that?
Well, I would agree with Mr. Erickson if we're talking about, globally, there's a lot of bad people out there that want to hurt us. And I would also just say that, like, here in the district, I would, just walking down on the street, with homicides being up 7% and along with other crimes being up, I wouldn't be stabbed or carjacked or shot statistically, by a white guy in a red hat screaming, "This is MAGA country."
Yeah, no, exactly. And we all know that's the case. I mean, it's not the reason you can't walk down the street in Chicago, New York, Baltimore, et cetera, because of white supremacy. And it's just sad because here's the deal. White supremacy is disgusting. It's disgusting. I look across the aisle at some of my brothers and sisters that don't have the same skin color as me. And you know what I see? I see men and women that were created in the image of God, just like I was. You may have a little more melanin in your skin than I do. I could care less. Even though I don't agree with you politically or your political worldview, you guys are my brothers and sisters, and I think it is disgusting. That being said, you guys are playing a very dangerous game by continually overstating the threat of white supremacy when there are massive threats. It's not white supremacists that are killing tens of thousands of our children in pill form called fentanyl. It's not white supremacy that is storming over our southern border right now. It's not white supremacy that is trafficking, sex slaves into this country at record numbers, and on and on and on. But if you guys want to keep beating that drum, you're more than that. That's your right. That's your right. But it's a reason that a lot of Americans don't take you guys seriously. My brothers and sisters, it's a reason why America doesn't take you guys seriously, because you keep beating that drum. It wasn't white supremacists that flew airliners into the World Trade Centers. And guess what? They're still out there. And a lot of those folks, because I've actually chased a lot of them overseas, they would love to come into a room like this with an S-vest on and clack it off and kill every single one of us. Black, brown, white, they could care less, because you don't share the same religious ideology as them. So we can keep playing these games. But you guys have seen the CBP individuals in here telling you how many individuals on the terror watch list has come over that southern border. And I'm telling you, my brothers and sisters of different colors than me, of the same color as me, if we're going to get serious about Homeland Security, we need to stop. We need to be realistic. And yeah, I don't know a member on this side or that side that doesn't think legitimate, real white supremacy is disgusting, because it is. Any type of supremacy is disgusting. Anytime we devalue anybody or hurt them or harm them with violence because of their skin color is disgusting. Ms. Gaines, thank you so much for what you're doing. As a dad to two little girls, it's pretty cool to see young women like yourself that have the courage to stand up to what you face on a daily basis. I've said it many times. You know what the number one ingredient missing in this town is, ma'am? It's not intelligence. You know what it is?
What is it?
It's courage.
I agree.
You have it. Thank you. Thank you guys for showing up today.
Thank you.
The gentleman's very consequential time has expired, and I now recognize Mr. Goldman of New York for his 5 minutes of question.
Well, I really appreciate the lecture from my colleague from Arizona. The problem is that he's speaking, of course, anecdotally. So let's look at what our actual executive branch agencies in charge of overseeing white supremacy, overseeing the homeland. Let's look at the Homeland Threat Assessment, which says, among DVEs, domestic violent extremists, racially and ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically white supremacist extremists, will remain the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland. Confirmed by the director of the FBI. Now, I know all of a sudden you all on that side want to defund the FBI, you want to defund the ATF, but the director of the FBI, a Trump appointee, has said that the biggest threat to our homeland is not global terrorism, it is domestic terrorism. And we have these witnesses up here who are trying to tell us, and Mr. Erickson, in his opening statement, let me just point this out. This is the big example that we need to be so worried about, because in Atlanta, apparently, there were 23 individuals arrested for crimes ranging from vandalism to assault. We have 650 people who are murdered in mass shootings every single year. Almost 2 per day mass shootings. Sorry, 600 mass shootings, far more people. And we're supposed to be talking here about vandalism. Give me a break. You can't even say, you can't sit here, Mr. Erickson. You were an employee of the Department of Homeland Security, and I want to get to that in a minute. You can't even acknowledge what your own agency said, that the biggest domestic terror threat is white nationalism, white supremacy. You're trying to get us, gaslight us up here as if Antifa, which Mr. Rosas, apparently the expert now in organized terrorist activity, has overruled the FBI director who says, there's a headline, says Antifa is an ideology, not an organization. No. Let's not listen to the FBI director. Let's listen to, sorry, what's your title? Senior writer at Town Hall, who is going to tell us that the FBI director is wrong. And I'd like to introduce, there's no question. I'd like to introduce, by unanimous consent, an AP article saying the FBI director says Antifa is an ideology, not an organization.
Without objection, so ordered.
Can I respond to that?
No, you cannot. I didn't ask a question.
It's the gentleman's time. He can spend it any way he chooses.
Mr. Erickson, you went to a meeting at the White House on December 18th, 2020, did you not?
I'm not sure which meeting you're speaking of.
Well, there was the same day that a group of Trump advisors, Sidney Powell and Patrick Byrne, met with the president in the Oval Office, and they discussed the prospect of seizing voting machines. Did you participate in that meeting?
No.
Did you hear anything about that plan to seize voting machines?
No.
Okay. So were you working at the Department of Homeland Security on January 6th?
Yes, I was.
Because, you know, it's interesting to me, you talk a lot about left-wing extremist activity in your statement, but you actually worked for the Department of Homeland Security on January 6th, and there was no mention of what happened on January 6th in your testimony. And it's fair, that's not the topic of this title, of this hearing. I think that's the problem with the hearing, but that's not your fault. So I just want to be clear, you have no idea, you were not involved in any discussions about seizing voting machines while you were working at the Department of Homeland Security?
That is correct.
Okay. When did you leave the department?
January the 20th, 2021 at noon.
Why did you leave then?
There was an inauguration that occurred at that time.
So a lot of people are held over, right?
No, that's incorrect. Not political appointees.
Okay, everyone was out?
Basically everybody, yeah, to the best of my knowledge.
Let me ask you something. Would you consider the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers to be an organized group?
Yes,
Their leaders have been convicted of seditious conspiracy at this point, right?
to my knowledge, correct.
Yeah, based on what they did on January 6th.
Correct.
Okay, have any left-wing, Antifa, or any other people been convicted of conspiracy?
The gentleman's time has expired. The committee will proceed.
Can you answer the question?